The Kargil conflict that took place in the summer of 1999 has raised several issues that continue to be a very important learning lesson for commanders of the Indian Army and India's political establishment when dealing with Pakistan and trying to understand their behavior. The conflict actually was initiated by a handful of generals led by General Musharraf, who was an extremely ambitious Pakistan Army chief and had a bee in a bonnet about how he wanted to avenge the humiliation of the Pakistan Army around the Siachen Glacier when they were unable to push back Indian troops after India occupied all the dominating heights around Siachen. So Musharraf dug out a plan that had been there in the Pakistan Army's headquarters, but a plan that was dismissed at least twice by Pakistan's leadership, once by General Zia, who thought it could lead to a level of escalation which might see a full-fledged war, and he wasn't prepared to go into a war with India because the end consequences would not be favorable for Pakistan. We're talking of the 1980s. And then in the 90s, some other generals dug out the plan again and put it up to Benazir Bhutto. And she also set it aside by saying it was too dangerous. But by 98, 99, Musharraf was the Pakistan Army chief, and he decided to initiate the parts of the plan without informing Nawaz Sharif initially, and also kept Pakistan's Director of Intelligence, the ISI, and even the Pakistan Air Force in the dark initially. His plan was to occupy the heights around Kargil in the high Himalayas when they were vacated in the winter months as part of an agreement between India and Pakistan where trust played an important factor, and instead of subjecting troops to the harsh climate and winters of the Himalayas, they'd pull back to more acceptable heights and come back to their positions marked out on the 740-kilometer line of control after the 1972 Shuchetgarh agreement between India and Pakistan. But Musharraf decided to flout that agreement because he had a bee in his bonnet about having been unsuccessful as a brigade commander to dislodge Indian troops from the high heights around the Siachen Glacier when he tried his best to evict Indian troops from the Sultoro Heights. So Musharraf went ahead with his plan and only, as per historical records available with us, explained this to Nawaz Sharif in the barest minimum detail, and Nawaz himself was a man with eye for little detail and kind of brushed this aside by saying, well, it shouldn't escalate into unmanageable proportions and words to that effect. So when, after the nuclear tests of India and Pakistan, the international community wanted to see a movement between India and Pakistan in bilateral ties, the Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee undertook a visit to Lahore to establish a level of trust between India and Pakistan, which he thought could go beyond what was the usual in bilateral ties. So he went to Lahore with a busload of people who had connections and friends in Pakistan. And he actually acknowledged the very idea of Pakistan and the acceptance of Pakistan by visiting the Minar-e-Pakistan in Lahore. Interestingly, none of the military commanders were there to meet Prime Minister Vajpayee in his engagements with the Pakistani establishment. The military, the army in particular, was planning this operation, and by April, May, it had become common knowledge in military circles that this was an operation which could either go terribly wrong or we may end up giving the Pakistan Army a shot in the arm. In fact, an air marshal from the Pakistan Army went on record to say that this operation could either end up with Pakistan having martial law or all of us being court-martialed. Pakistan Air Force for a long time was not on board because they didn't see the possibility of this becoming a conflict where they will come out with a higher hand than the Indian Air Force. So what happened? The first thing was Musharraf's aim was to defy the sanctity of the line of control and therefore put his troops in positions on the pickets, occupying bunkers and sangars along the line of control in about 150-kilometer range in the 740-kilometer line of control. These were all heights overlooking the general area around Kargil. More importantly, he wanted to occupy those heights to defy any Indian military movement in the summer months on the National Highway 1, which connected Srinagar to Leh. That logistic lifeline was extremely important then for Indian military garrisons in Leh and also for the sustenance of Indian troops on those daunting heights of the Siachen Glacier and thereabouts. And his third aim was to try and occupy some enclaves on the line of control, which Pakistan had lost in the 71 war, like Turtuk, where the older population still had some kind of a sentimental leaning towards Pakistan. So Musharraf's operation was launched with regular soldiers but dressed as irregulars in shalwar kurta. And he gave a spin to it by telling the Pakistani people and the media that the Mujahideen have occupied those heights because they wanted to express solidarity with the Pakistan-sponsored Mujahideen who were operating in Jammu and Kashmir. What Musharraf missed out on is a simple logic that insurgents and Mujahideen groups don't occupy heights, they operate in populated areas. And nobody fights for a war of liberation at 18,000 feet on snow-clad peaks. So the Indians didn't buy that argument, whereas a lot of people in the Indian media did, until revelations came out sometime in end May, early June, that it was actually the regular Pakistan army, largely, that India was fighting against. And the Indian Prime Minister clearly told the army chief, General Malik, to evict the Pakistanis from there and restore the sanctity of the line of control. His broad term of reference was that don't cross the line of control, but get everybody out from what we recognize clearly as Indian territory. General Malik's response was, sir, we don't have much, but we'll fight with what we have. So Indian troops were acclimatized quickly and duly motivated and armed, pushed up those fierce icy heights around Kargil. And once they got going, there was no stopping them. They captured peaks and posts of the Pakistanis, one after another, and from Tololing to Tiger Hill, they played merry hell with the Pakistanis. After some debate, the Indian Air Force was also brought in. And once it came in, the Indian Air Force made a dramatic impact because the Mirage aircrafts were able to target Pakistani posts on those high hilltops and hit them with devastating fire. Though it was difficult, because Air Force pilots have told me that at that speed at which those aircrafts flew, it was very difficult to understand the exact alignment of the line of control, which is marked on maps and not necessarily on those heights, though it is a watershed line, because posts and pickets are difficult to identify when aircrafts fly at those speeds, sometime beyond the speed of sound. Eventually, the other aspect that began to alter things in India's favor was the international pressure on Pakistan to pull off, because it began to become common knowledge amongst at least foreign journalists that Pakistan was behind this mischief. Nawaz Sharif, fearing that he would be further embarrassed in front of his people for him having not taken seriously the matter in its initial stages, rushed with his family to meet President Clinton on the 4th of July in 1999. The day was America's Independence Day, and like India's Independence Day, the country is closed. But Clinton was therefore not in White House, but away a little outside in what I believe was Blair House. Nawaz Sharif bulldozed his way there and wouldn't leave till he could get President Clinton to intervene. Clinton refused to mediate because he said India doesn't want mediation. More importantly, the Clinton Chronicles and diaries, which have been published by Bill Clinton's friend, say that at that time President Clinton told him, "You are in the wrong. Your army has started the conflict. Your army must end the conflict. And as far as we are concerned, we recognize the line of control as a border between India and Pakistan. And Kashmir is with India, so we don't see any reason for getting involved in a conflict which seemed to be very clearly in India's favor." Nawaz somehow pushed and haggled and tried to get some kind of joint intervention from the US in a statement that came out. But eventually, Nawaz Sharif's humiliating visit to the US further added to the anger between the military brass and some political leaders in Pakistan's opposition that Pakistan was being cornered and embarrassed every which way. But Pakistan's army eventually faced an unpredictable Indian response, which was going at them like a juggernaut that could not be stopped. India eventually pushed them out of all the heights around Kargil around 26 July, which is now recognized in India as the Victory Day over Kargil. We turned surprise into a victory, which is the title of General Malik's book on Kargil, which is perhaps the most definitive account. And there were many lessons that came out of the conflict. One was that intelligence and enemy's intelligence is paramount. It was a clear failure of Indian intelligence agencies of not assessing and identifying what Pakistan's intention was and how the conflict would evolve. They tried to pass the blame on to the military, but the military cannot see beyond 3 to 5 kilometers from the high heights it occupies. Beyond that, in enemy territory, is the job of India's external intelligence. The other aspect that came out, which was highlighted by the Kargil Review Committee, which was headed by Mr. K. Subramaniam, the father of the current Foreign Minister, Dr. Jaishankar. And the Kargil Review Committee brought out that our troops needed better equipment, better technology, and we needed to have a much better integrated command and control structure to ensure that all our services are used in any future conflict. Sadly, many of the points highlighted by the Kargil Review Committee are still being debated, and we are finding it hard to implement because too many voices are still doing the rounds of South Block. And the last and final aspect is that the Kargil conflict began the process of the US turning away from Pakistan and coming into a deep relationship with India, which is now called the important defense and strategic arrangements that India has with the US in a unique partnership, which we haven't had with the US at least since independence of this scale. America realized Pakistan and its generals were unpredictable, and therefore it is better to engage with a more responsible democratic country like India, which respects old agreements like the line of control and which does not let a matter escalate to unmanageable levels, even though India and Pakistan were nuclear weapon states. But it showed that in the event of a conflict between two nuclear weapon states, a border conflict, it need not escalate into a full-fledged war, but it will remain limited to its strategic space. And therefore, when we look back at Kargil, finally, we salute the gallantry, the courage, the determination of our soldiers and our men who went in without unquestioning loyalty to achieve what was expected of them, and they delivered again and again. And decorated or not, every man who fought at Kargil is a hero.